All right, Internet, buckle up. I have a question that's been burning a hole in my brain. What if we, all 8 billion of us, decided to coordinate the world's most dramatic round of applause? Not for a concert, not for a speech, but just to see what would happen. Could our collective patty cake actually crack the planet in half? Is this the secret, ridiculous apocalypse nobody is talking about? Let's find out. If 8 billion people clapped at once, would the Earth go boom?
First, let's talk about what a clap even is. When you bring your hands together, you're basically creating a tiny, tiny sonic boom. You're squishing the air between your palms so fast that it creates a pressure wave that travels to our ears. That's sound. You also make a minuscule amount of heat, way too little for you to ever feel. So one clap is a harmless little pocket of noise and energy. It's not even enough to scare a fly. But we're not talking about one. We're talking about 8 billion. That number is so big it's silly. So before we even get to the clap, we have a tiny logistics problem. Where do we put everyone?
Let's be generous and say each person needs just half a square meter of space to stand and clap. No fancy dance moves. For 8 billion people, you'd need a flat, empty plain of about 4,000 square kilometers. To give you a picture, that's a space bigger than some small countries, like Luxembourg. Imagine that, a single, massive, incredibly sweaty crowd of every single person on Earth, from your next-door neighbor to that guy who sells souvenirs on the other side of the planet.
But wait, there's a problem before the clap even happens. All these people are people, and people breathe. In a crowd that dense, we'd be consuming about 64 billion liters of air per minute. The air in the middle of that crowd would quickly turn stale, CO2 would build up, and people would start passing out from lack of oxygen. Plus, our bodies are like little 100-watt heaters. 8 billion little heaters? That's 800 gigawatts of body heat. That's the output of hundreds of large power plants. So before we even clap, our giant meetup is already a hot, suffocating biological disaster. Not a great start.
But let's hand-wave all that away. Let's say we have magical, indestructible, perfectly ventilated bleachers for all 8 billion people. Our next problem is timing. This is the most important part. For the maximum effect, everyone's hands have to smack together at the exact same microsecond. Not almost the same, exactly the same. This is impossible. You can't even get a stadium full of people to do the wave in sync, let alone get all of humanity to clap in perfect unison. The sound waves would be all out of phase, canceling each other out in some places and making a messy, rumbling noise.
But this is our thought experiment. So let's use our imagination. A miracle happens. Everyone is gathered, everyone is comfortable, and on the count of 3, 16 billion hands come together in perfect, glorious, terrifying harmony. What happens next? Sound. A lot of it. A single clap is about 70 decibels. That's the sound of a vacuum cleaner. When you add sounds together, it doesn't work like simple addition. It's logarithmic. For simplicity's sake, the combined clap of 8 billion people would easily soar past 200 decibels.
Let that number sink in. 200 decibels. A jet engine at takeoff is about 140 decibels. That's painfully loud. A rocket launch at close range is about 180 decibels, enough to vibrate your entire body. But 200 decibels? That's in the realm of the unreal. At that point, it's not just sound anymore. It becomes a shock wave, a physical wall of pressure, just like from a bomb blast. So, what would this 200 decibel clap shock wave do?
First, everyone's eardrums would be instantly and permanently obliterated. The shock wave would radiate out from the epicenter of the clap. For several kilometers, the air pressure would be so intense it would shatter glass, collapse buildings, and cause fatal damage to the lungs of any living thing. Yes, the pressure wave would literally rupture your lungs. So the most ironic thing happens. We'd create a sound so loud that the first thing it would do is make everyone permanently deaf, followed very quickly by making them very dead in the central zones. But is it a planet buster? Let's look at the raw energy. Let's say each clap releases about 1,000th of a joule of energy as sound. A joule is a tiny unit of energy. It takes about 100,000 joules to boil a cup of water. Multiply that tiny clap energy by 8 billion, and you get a total of about 8 million joules. Now, 8 million joules sounds like a lot, and in a way, it is. That's the kinetic energy of a 20-ton truck slamming into a wall at 100 kilometers per hour. It's also roughly equivalent to the explosion of about 2 kilograms of TNT. That is a powerful, devastating explosion. At the very center of our human cluster, it would be like detonating a large bomb. It would be absolutely catastrophic and deadly for millions of people gathered there.
But is it enough to blow up the Earth? Let's get some perspective. The Earth is a tough cookie. A small meteor burning up in our atmosphere releases billions of joules. A magnitude 5.0 earthquake releases over trillions of joules of energy. That's millions of times more energy than our giant clap. So while our synchronized clap would be a horrifying, localized disaster of biblical proportions for us, for the Earth, it would be less like a planet-shattering kaboom and more like a mosquito bumping into a battleship. The Earth wouldn't even notice. It wouldn't shift our orbit. It wouldn't crack the crust. It wouldn't trigger worldwide tsunamis. The energy, while terrifyingly concentrated, is just a tiny, tiny fraction of what the planet handles daily from tectonic shifts and solar radiation. So, the final verdict? If by some miracle we could pull this off, we wouldn't destroy the world. Instead, we'd essentially be setting off a massive human-made bomb at our own party, wiping out a huge chunk of ourselves to create a sound that most of us wouldn't even live long enough to hear. It would be the most ambitious, coordinated, and ultimately self-destructive act in human history, a testament to our ability to come together for the most spectacularly bad ideas. So no, the Earth won't explode. But our eardrums, our buildings, and our chances of survival in the immediate area certainly would. It's a fun thought experiment that teaches us one thing. Some things are better left unclapped. If your mind is buzzing with more crazy questions like this, you know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss our next dive down a ridiculous scientific rabbit hole. Let me know in the comments, what's the next what if we should tackle?